Hi everyone! I think it's been almost 2 or 3 years since I last made a YouTube video. So join me as I make my little hydration drink and do some other stuff around my house and my kitchen. Last time you saw me, I was just a homemaking wife, and now I have a baby, which is so exciting. I know I made a video about my endometriosis journey and my health journey, and we are so thankful to the Lord that we were blessed with a little baby who is healthy and strong. I would love to make a video about other struggles that we had. I unfortunately did have a miscarriage, and that was a really hard time trying to figure out why that happened. And if you've ever had a miscarriage, you know just all the questions that could go into it, like what did I do wrong, what could I have done better, and sometimes the answer is nothing. And so yeah, I would love to make a video about that sometime and my experience with that. But in the meantime, another update is that I quit my job to be a stay-at-home mom, which is super exciting, and we're definitely trusting the Lord with his guidance toward making this decision, because that was definitely not the plan to quit my job. But I am super excited to work on my health some more and get in the rhythms and routines with my son and be a good mom for him and be more present. I think when I last made videos on this channel, I was really trying to be something specific and maybe trying to copy other people. And now I'm in a season of life where I just think it's going to be really fun to make videos and just show you what I'm doing in my kitchen. And these are the videos I love to watch. I just like to see people do different things, and I've gotten so many different ideas from watching different moms and wives and women in general, just figuring stuff out in their kitchen and being creative. And I absolutely love to be creative in my kitchen, and I also love editing and making videos, and I just want my YouTube channel just to be fun. And of course I'm gonna want people to watch it, but that's really not the main reason that I'm doing it. It's fun to just have another hobby, so I hope that you stick around. I'm getting started on making some orange chicken right now. So I'm getting some rice into my pot, washing it, and as I mentioned earlier, I am making some bone broth that I am going to end up canning, which I'm really excited about because I have not canned in a really long time. Another update is that I bought a grain mill, and I'm sure that you've seen the craze of grain mills lately, but I've been really loving my grain mill and learning how to use it and how to make good breads. And at first I was very intimidated, but I've gotten into more of a groove. This is some einkorn berries that I'm using, or einkorn, yeah, I think that's what you call them, einkorn berries. And I've been experimenting with these more because I'm a little bit shy of using different sorts of grains, if that makes sense. So I wanted to try this einkorn out. I'm getting some broccoli going with some olive oil and salt, and garlic powder is really good on them as well. And this is such an easy veggie to just throw in the oven and roast, and it's so good. And then I'm cracking an egg, and I have my flour and salt in another bowl, and I'm going to cut up my chicken into bite-sized pieces. And I'm going to start dipping the chicken in the egg and then in the flour and the salt. I remembered to keep my hands separate, so one hand is dry and one hand is wet, and that is the easiest way to dredge. I think that's what you call it, dredge. That is the easiest way to dredge your whatever you're cooking. I'm adding some avocado oil into my pan to fry. This orange chicken recipe, it was okay. I would say that I think that the sauce needs a little more tweaking, but right now I am using fresh oranges, which was a little bit funny because the oranges were spraying out everywhere. But you could definitely use orange juice to make this a lot faster, which I think would be just as good, maybe even better. If I remember correctly, I've made this recipe before and I've only used orange juice, and I liked the way it turned out a lot more. To sweeten, I'm using maple syrup, but I bet honey would be really good, or you could use sugar if you'd like. And then I'm using some tamari sauce, and you could totally use coconut aminos. They're just not always our favorite choice anymore, even though I do still have them on hand for some things. Now, I did this chicken in 2 batches to fry because if you crowd the meat, it won't crisp up that well. So I did 2 different batches, and then I flipped them, and I did temp them because I just get a little nervous about my meat, and I like to just be confident that it's cooked, and I don't always know all the tricks and tips of how to tell. So I really like a meat thermometer just to know for sure what the temperature is of my meat. To thicken my sauce, I just did some arrowroot powder and some water and then added that in. I put the sauce right in the pan. I got the excess oil out of the pan before I did this, and then I got some chicken back in there, and I think I did about half the chicken, and then some sauce over top, and then I did rice with some green onion and broccoli on the side, and there she is. Alright, taste test. It's really good, but I had to critique. I literally almost lost my life over there eating that chicken. Do you ever have intrusive thoughts where you're like, I'm gonna choke right now in the kitchen, I'm gonna die, and my baby, who knows what's gonna happen to my baby, my husband better get home ASAP. Anyways, that is, to be honest with you, that is not an easy meal. That is not like a 20-minute meal prep, whatever the freak. This is a doozy. This is like if my kids were older and he asked for this for his birthday, I'd do it. That's the vibe. It's just a little challenging, but it's good. But yeah, I think the sauce could use some work. If you're craving Chinese food, I definitely think this gives that vibe. So, bye! So right now, I'm going to start skimming the broth into this little container. I should have done that when it was done cooking the first time, and I forgot, so that's my bad. But that's what I'm going to do right now. Like I said before, I'm going to can my bone broth, so I'm straining all of the bones and everything out of it. So you want to make sure if you're making bone broth and canning it that you take all the fat off, because if you leave the fat, it can boil up and over in the canner, and then it can stop the lid from sealing correctly onto the jar, and then you don't have a safe product. Here's the book I use every time I can. It's just the book that came with my canner, and I really like to follow this to make sure that I have a good product that I can trust. Now I am putting the broth through a strainer and also a mesh cloth to get even more particles out. And as you can see, I'm stirring it because it's getting clumped up in the towel, and then it drops into the pot. So that was kind of annoying. But I continued on. I actually ended up taking the cloth out because it was just a little too much for me. I wanted to move on with this part. So my broth did have a few particles in it, but that doesn't bother me too much. When you're canning, you want to make sure everything is clean and sterile, so I clean and sterilize all my jar parts. I do want to make it clear though, this is not a canning video. The thing with canning is it's actually, I'm sure everyone knows this, I feel like I didn't know this, but it obviously can be dangerous because of the risk of botulism. So you really want to make sure you're following the guidelines that the canning, whoever society has decided is safe. For me, for example, I've canned beans before, and a lot of people on YouTube that I've seen, they do not follow the instructions. They shortcut, which is they can dried beans, and you're really not supposed to can dry beans. And the whole thing with canning is, do you trust the product that you put up? So for me, I will trust the product if I follow the book. And the book says to sterilize, the book says to cook the broth, to refrigerate, to skim, to boil the broth again. Some people might skip those steps. I don't feel comfortable doing that. Definitely go follow other canning videos. It can be kind of confusing. I'm the kind of learner where I need to watch everyone and see what everyone's doing before I can actually do something. So these have to sterilize. They need to boil all of them for 10 minutes. I have no idea when that's gonna happen, but this is turning into a much bigger project than I remember. I have put my baby down for this next step. Now I'm emptying out all the hot water from my sterile jars. And the next thing I'm going to do is start filling my hot jars with my hot broth. and put them into my hot canner. So I say all that because you could do this cold. Don't take my word for it. I think you can. But basically the rule in canning is do everything hot or do everything cold, or else your jars will shatter and break. Once I get all of the broth into the cans, I'm going to make sure that there's a 1-inch headspace, and by that I mean that there's 1 inch from the liquid to the top of the jar, if that makes sense. And I actually didn't probably do 1 inch. I should have added some water into each. After you get all the broth in, you want to clean the rim so that they seal properly. I'm scared that there's gonna be too much fat in this, and so the fat is gonna bubble up and it's not gonna can. But can't go back now. I've done this a few times, and when I don't tighten it more than what I think finger tight is, which maybe I just don't know what finger tight means, then it like never cans. Alright, I'm putting them in the canner in hot water. And I'm just double checking my book. Yes, okay, 10 minutes. That took me so long. Okay, so once this has been steaming for 10 minutes, I can come back, put the whatever on here, and then, yeah. I have low hopes for this because I feel like my broth was too fatty. So I'm really hoping that that does not happen. But we will see, time will tell. So as you can see, it's steaming, that's perfect. And then there's stuff going on back there too, which, okay, so that little guy in the back did pop up. I went ahead and put the lid on whatever it's called, and now I'm gonna wait for it to get to 11 pounds of pressure. And then as it reaches pressure, I will probably turn down the heat on this to like medium, and then I will repeatedly check on it to make sure it stays at the right pressure, or else you have to restart. So I canned my jars of broth to 11 pounds of pressure, and I waited until it was completely cooled, probably maybe 4 hours before I took the lid off, and I was successful. They all canned, even though there actually was quite a bit of fat. So I'm super thankful that it actually worked. I think it did. Probably thanks to the extra vinegar that I put around the jars. And now I have 6 quarts of shelf-stable homemade chicken bone broth, which just feels so good. So definitely go and watch or read about a professional who's canned for a while. But I hope this was helpful just to see that you can do it. If you want to, you can learn, and it's really not as hard as it might seem. Well, thanks for joining me in my kitchen for these last 2 days, and I don't know what video is coming next, but I really hope that you'll join me, and I'll see you then.